Hey guys, when it comes to buying her the perfect gift, the JCPenney Jewelry event is your last chance to get it right. Get 45% off all diamonds, gemstones, and pearls, and 65% off all gold jewelry. Plus, get an extra 25% off select fine jewelry with your coupon. Remember to download our app for coupons and to sign up for JCPenney Rewards. Give her a gift she'll love at the savings you want. JCPenney, where giving begins. Coupon valid 12/17-12/19. Some exclusions apply. Check newspaper at jcp.com for details.
Granddaddy of them all, number 5 Iowa, number 6 Stanford. The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 5 Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take Podcast. Can the G-Men end the Panthers' perfection? Plus, which NFL teams will make a playoff push this weekend? And LeBron gets the best of KD again. That and so much more coming up on the pod.
Skip, won't you let it go? Just not on every show. Skip, won't you let it go? But just not on every show. Oh man. Skip, won't you let it go? Just not on every show. Skip, please, please, please let it go.
This man let it go on every show. Thank you, John Legend, for that.
Thank you,
we'll
John.
get into that in just a minute.
That was a beautiful thing.
It was beautiful.
I don't like the sentiment, but it was a beautiful thing.
Did the message resonate? That's the question.
I just hope that Dez doesn't let it go when it hits his hands this time. If he just hangs on to the football, maybe the outcome will be a little different this time.
We hope he throws up the X so you don't have to throw up like last time.
I like that.
Skip Bayless, Molly Karam here in Bristol.
Oh, that was my line.
Stephen A. Smith joins us from the city of brotherly love. Stephen A., how are we doing? I miss you. I feel like you haven't been here all week.
Well, I haven't been there all week other than Monday, but I'll be back on Monday. Don't worry about it. I'll be in the house.
Your Giants partner in crime.
Yeah, I'm starting to miss him.
She misses you because she needs some backup when she tries to defend her New York football Giants, as we're about to do right now.
Nobody needs to defend the Giants against you since your team already is on vacation.
Well, let's just see what's about to happen then.
All right.
Let's just see.
All right, let's do it. Let's get into it, guys. So the perfect Panthers head to MetLife Sunday for a clash with the G-Men. The Giants have a history of ruining perfection, Skip Bayless. Just ask the 98 Broncos and the 2007 Patriots.
Well, that's ancient history. Is that all you got?
They are tied for first in the NFC East, but they don't control their own destiny. All eyes on the matchup within the matchup, though. Josh Norman versus Odell Beckham. Jonathan Stewart is out, and Greg Olsen is questionable. Stephen A., will the Giants ruin the Panthers' perfect season?
I'm afraid not. I don't think they will. It's certainly possible. I don't. It's certainly possible that they could, but I don't believe they will. I think that Carolina is on a mission. I think that the Giants' pass defense is horrific. The fact is that when you combine that with the fact that their offensive line is suspect, which makes their running game suspect, obviously I think that Carolina's got some issues at corner outside of Josh Norman, but you've got the linebackers in Kuechly and Davis that are going to be there to help out. So I think that that's going to help them immensely, and I think that there are too many question marks on the offensive side of the ball for the New York Giants. I know they can put up some points, don't get me wrong. I understand they're capable of that, but it's going to have to be riding the coattails of Odell Beckham Jr., and I don't know how much he's going to be able to do against this defense. He'll have his moments, no doubt, because he's too great not to. But I think the other guys that are going to be required to step up, if the Giants were not their backs weren't against the wall and they were playing with house money because, say, their season was lost like the Dallas Cowboys, maybe you could make a legitimate argument. But due to the pressure that's mounting against them with their very playoff possibilities, on the precipice, I just look at the New York Giants situation as being dire. I think it'll be competitive, no doubt. I don't think there'll be a blowout or anything, but I think Carolina's defense is elite. Cam Newton is elite. Giants have too many questions on offense, and their defense, particularly against the pass, is absolutely positively horrific. I think you combine all of those things, and I just can't see them winning this game. I can see it being close for about 3 quarters, but ultimately Carolina pulling away in the fourth quarter. I can see something along the lines of 33-24.
Wow. By the way, real quick, look at this. Close
34
enough?
to 24.
Just for the record, I wrote that down before the show. So,
for
also for the record, we do not confer on our picks before the show. So in this one, I have no idea where you're going. And I must admit, I am shocked, and for your sake, I am ashamed that you don't have the backs of your New York Giants that you allegedly grew up loving, although you're a Steelers fan and a Giants fan. So I don't really understand this. We are at the crucial, pivotal point in the NFC least season where you're tied for first place, and you can't kill this Giant at home with Eli Manning throwing to Odell Beckham Jr., and you're going with Cam Newton without Jonathan Stewart and with a highly questionable Greg Olsen. I don't even know if he's going to play. Yeah. So that's all you got for me today? I'm just so disappointed in you.
And in all fairness, I wasn't aware, to be quite honest with you, I wasn't aware that Jonathan Stewart wasn't going to be available. I'll give you that. But it doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, it's very little you understand anyway. So you saying you don't quite understand is no shock. It's on a daily basis that you struggle to understand where I'm coming from. And that's life. You'll learn to deal with it eventually.
I'm not alone
but in the end, when it comes
regard,
to...
It's okay.
Well, no. You don't understand.
Yeah.
Other people just can't tolerate because
Okay.
they're scared of the truth. You just wouldn't know the truth if it slapped you. So we understand the difference between you and the general public. But here's the deal. I stand by my pick because I just stopped believing in the Giants weeks ago, Skip, against elite competition. I just stopped it. And Miami's game, the game Monday night against Miami, doesn't fool me because I don't consider Miami much of a team anyway.
Okay, so now this is unplanned, but I have to put your partner in crime on the spot. Could we please have Molly's camera? Because Molly is a true Giants fan, born and bred, true blue to the core. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Miss Connecticut, yes, that is true.
Miss Connecticut,
Actually, they don't have a team. They don't have a team. You got to root for something else. You know, no, but it's all right.
Miss Connecticut, would you please make your pick on your Giants versus Cam Newton's Panthers?
I don't have a score, but I think the Giants will win.
We got a winner here.
Did you hear ODB's response to that, to Josh Norman? I love that approach.
Well, he didn't have much of a response, I thought.
Yeah, because he's focused. He's focused.
Okay,
he doesn't need to talk. Let the other people
it's beneath his dignity. He doesn't even want to engage in it.
Carolina's banged up. We have a lot to play for. Did you see these win streaks that this team's ended?
Are you listening to this, Mr. Smith? This is what you should have said, and you didn't have the guts to say it. You did not have enough pride in your football team to stand up and defend them when it's time to defend them.
Well, you can use that as a fair analogy, and you could have Miss Connecticut sitting there supporting you, and that's fine. But I recall on several occasions where Miss Connecticut was wrong, and what would happen is that when we put the camera on her after she's wrong, she goes to commercial break. So I mean, if you want to call it brave, go ahead. It's all right.
Yeah,
it's okay. But I am proud of her for sticking with her New York Giants, even though when they lose, she changes the subject, and since she controls the show, we end up going to commercial prematurely just to get the camera off of her.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just saying, it's okay. Yeah. It's all right. It's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Skip.
Back to the question at hand. To Miss Connecticut's initial setup point.
I can't with you guys. I can't.
There has been an ancient Giants history of giant killing.
Yeah.
Ancient. It's way back.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing
I left one
1998 and 2007, and there was another one in 1934, if memory serves, where the Bears lost in the NFL championship game in 1934, and Miss Connecticut is still clinging to that as giant killing that could contribute to what will happen this Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Am I right about that? And I will give you this, Miss Connecticut. I'm not trying to jinx you. I'm just going to pick a winner here. Okay. Your Giants came very close to dragon slaying when Tom Brady and company ventured forth into MetLife, right? Yep. It went to the wire. So I give you all that. Here's the point that is Stephen A's point that is the one valid point made by either of you in this discussion. Cam Newton is on too much of a firepower role, even without Greg Olsen if it comes to that, for this defense to stop his offense. I don't care if it's Fozzie Whitaker or Cameron Artis-Payne carrying the football. And there is still that little Ted Ginn guy that you have ridiculed on this show. But when it's bombs away to him, maybe twice a game, he will catch them. And he will run past your secondary, which is giving up 308 yards a game passing. Am I right about that? Do you realize the next worst team is the Steelers at 279? So the Giants are giving up 308 passing, and they are by far dead last. To the next worst team, 279 is the Steelers. That's how bad they are. Overall, your Giants are giving up 418 yards a game on pace to shatter the franchise record for yards allowed per game. Your defense is pathetic, and Cam Newton is not pathetic, because as we talked about, just to frame this, weeks 1 through 8, Cam was kind of mediocre by Cam standards. And he had 11 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Weeks 9 to 14, he almost doubled his QBR from 47 to 84, and he's 17 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions. That's since week 9. That's pretty great, and I think that will continue because this team has now won 17 straight games. And I believe that even though I give you this, Odell Beckham Jr. is a bad man. In fact, he is the baddest man at receiver in the business right now. There is no doubt about that. But I loved this is my take on it, I love what Josh Norman said. He got chill bumps when somebody brought up the fact to him when he first walked in on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, that, upcoming is ODB. He said he got chill bumps because he has turned into the newest version of Richard Sherman. And I remind Cowboy Nation, that man, Josh Norman, held Dez Bryant to 2 catches for 26 yards on Thanksgiving, and he took all of Dez's trash talk and stuck it right in the trash, because this guy can talk trash with anybody. This might be the all-time trash talk off between ODB and Josh Norman, and I do believe that Josh will get a little better of this. I think he will hold ODB to under 100 yards receiving, and remember, his partner in crime, Charles Tillman, is finally back at the other corner, and this defense leads the NFL in takeaways, and I'm going to guess, I'll be conservative, they will get Eli twice. I'll say they pick him off twice. So I've got, right with your score, and I'm not a Giants fan, I got 34-24. You have 33-24. So I'm going to better you by 1 point for Cam. I'm saying he gets to 34.
Well, a couple of things. The difference between us is that fandom to me means who you're rooting for, not who you should pick just because you're a fan. You can be a fan. Of course, I want the Giants to win, but the reality is that do you believe it based on what you're seeing from them? I think their secondary is horrific. I think their defense against the pass is horrific. I thought they had the Miami Dolphins looking like Air Coryell from Dan Fouts and the San Diego Chargers from years ago, or the greatest show on turf, for crying out loud, in that first half. Nobody could stop anybody, and I just know that's not going to happen against Carolina. Okay. That's number one. Number two, let's also understand this in favor of the New York Giants. Dez Bryant's a bad boy, and he's tried and proven. He's just coming back from an injury. But Dez Bryant, Odell Beckham Jr. is an entirely different beast, because Dez Bryant beats you with his quickness and his physicality. Odell Beckham Jr. can beat you with his speed. What you're anticipating and expecting from Ted Ginn Jr. are the kind of things that Odell Beckham can do, just slightly, just a touch slower, but with considerably better hands. And we all know that Ted Ginn Jr. can fly. When I've been insulting about Ted Ginn Jr., nobody's denying the fact that his route running ability, his breakaway speed, he's electrifying. The problem is that he needs to stop dropping passes. Now, according to the numbers, he ranked like 12th in the league coming in the last week in dropped passes. So people try to say it's not that bad. As far as I'm concerned, you have no business on a dropped pass list if you're an elite receiver. So we got to keep our eyes on that. But I certainly expect Ted Ginn Jr. to make some noise, particularly against this secondary. If I'm Cam Newton, I go to him all day because he might drop 3 passes, but he'll catch 3 or 4 too, and they'll be for big plays because this is the Giants secondary that we're talking about him going up against. It's just that simple. In the end, however, it's also about Cam Newton. You got to remember, the Giants don't have the greatest pass rush, and because they don't register but so many sacks, you've got a situation where that puts even more pressure on the secondary because you're not getting to the quarterback. And even in the case of JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, when he gets to the quarterback, because that big cast-like thing on his arm because of his amputated finger, which, by the way, I don't think he should be allowed to be playing with that big thing on his hand, to be quite honest with you.
I'm
it's like
okay
a
with
hammer
it.
for crying out loud.
What's he supposed to do?
It's entirely too big. It's entirely too big, and you're slapping people upside their head with the helmets. I mean, come on now. You see how big that thing is on JPP hands? He can't hold on to anybody because there were a couple of times. There were a couple of times Monday night where he had Ryan Tannehill but couldn't grab him with 2 hands, okay, because of that big thing on his hand. But that's just entirely too different, too big. He shouldn't be on the field with that. I ain't gonna lie to you. He shouldn't be on the field with that. But in the end, what it comes down to is that there's just too many impediments to the Giants' success. Of course, they can make it interesting. Of course, they got an offense that can break away and can beat anybody. But can you depend on them to do it against an elite team like the Carolina Panthers this season? I say no. As much as I wish, I can say yes.
Allow me to frame this discussion with this. If, as you predict, your Giants lose on Sunday, that will guarantee their 3rd straight non-winning season. And if they fail to make the playoffs by failing to win the division, that will mean 4 straight years they have missed the playoffs under Tom Coughlin. Let's just keep it all in some perspective about how mediocre and dare I say pathetic your Giants have been for the last 4 years.
Well, in all seriousness, Skip, I don't enjoy calling for somebody's job. I truly don't, from the bottom of my heart. But fair is fair. And when you talk about individuals out there starving for opportunities, you just look at some of these guys, like a Tom Coughlin, for example. I know he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. I respect that. But to miss it would be 4 straight years to miss the playoffs, 6 of the last 8, 5 of the last 6. How do you still keep your job after this season? As far as I'm concerned, if Tom Coughlin and the Giants don't make the playoffs, it's time for a change. He's been there long enough.
All right. And if the Giants win, Stephen A., call your sister Linda. She can come up with a caption. And call Carmen. I'm going to put in a cake order. We're going to have a nice celebration up here on Monday when we see you.
Well, Carmen is cool. Carmen's going to take care of me because she's going to bake the cookies. She's going to make me my lasagna. Linda might not talk to me for about a week. Linda's very upset with me right now.
If they win, though, we'll have a nice order. Skip won't eat any, though.
Yeah, but Linda's going to be mad. Linda's still going to be mad that I picked against her.
I will not participate. Thank you very much, because you're not going to win.
Wow. Do you want to talk about your Cowboys? Because they're having a good season. Yeah, let's do it. A full weekend of football. Saturday it all starts. The Cowboys on the brink of elimination. Skip Bayless, Saturday night in Jerry's World.
Yep.
And you might have to finally let them go. Meanwhile, the Jets, who have won 3 straight, currently hold a wild card spot, but Stephen A. Steelers are breathing down their necks. Skip?
Yes.
Who wins?
Molly, Stephen A. Smith. It is not time for me to let it go. It is time for my Dallas Cowboys to let it fly. This is it. This is their time. This will be their night. Saturday night, NFL Network. I think it's 8:25. My Dallas Cowboys will win this football game. Number one, first and foremost, Dez Bryant owes Cowboy Nation and owes his teammates this game, because we all know What a nightmarish day he had at Lambeau Field last week when he turned Titletown into Drop City. Enough of that, Des. I expect Des Bryant to come out and play with a rage that will set a different tone for this game. Your man, Calvin Pryor, the safety for the Jets, basically called him out and said Des Bryant no longer has the same closing speed because we all know he's still trying to rehab from his Jones fracture. I don't care. He can still run well enough. I agree with what Todd Bowles said. He can still make plays, and he will make plays if he just catches the football. It's time, Des Bryant, to set the tone as the leader, a man who's gotten his money. It's time to take this game over. It's time for this team to rise above Jason Garrett, who does only one thing well. That man can sure clap. He can clap. Way to go, guys. It's time for this team to quit playing to lose, because without Tony Romo, they have barely lost 8 out of their 9 losses. They barely lost. They were right there. It's time to close a deal, and they can close this deal. It's time, even again, I give you this. It looks on paper like a terrible matchup for my Cowboys. The Jets are number 1 against the run in the National Football League. Number 1 against keeping runners out of the end zone, and I don't care because my offensive line can block people. Darren McFadden has had 300-yard-plus games since week 1, which is tied for the lead in the National Football League. My Cowboys rushed for 171 yards at Green Bay, and I see more of the same against the Jets. Matt Castle has shown me some flashes against your Giants at MetLife and against the Redskins in the fourth quarter at Washington. He is capable. He's just got to let it fly. I don't care if he throws one pick, because that one pick could turn into 2 touchdown passes if he will just let it fly. It's time for this team to play angry, to make its own breaks, because we all know it's bottom of the barrel in takeaways caused, fumbles and interceptions forced. So this will be the week that they'll get some breaks, because they will make their own breaks. They will win this game 20-17 on Saturday night. And I know one man who will be watching every snap of this game, and it's that man.
I thought he changed the channel on us.
Yeah, no, he won't change this channel. He'll be right there.
Actually, Skip Bayless, I have to work a couple of NBA games. I'm not going to waste my time watching this game. The conclusion is a foregone one. Let me tell you something right now. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Let me tell you what has me laughing. Let me tell you, throughout that entire ridiculous, nonsensical soliloquy, what had me laughing at the end? What had me laughing at the end? Skip Bayless, you sat up there and said, it is time for this team to play angry. You mean now that they're 4-9?
Yeah.
Well, what happened when they were 4-8? What about
it's time?
I mean, what happened? I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Now it's time for them to play angry? Now it's time for them to play angry?
Yep.
Really now? Isn't it over? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
They're only 2 games out of first.
That you can sit here with a straight face. That you can sit here. It's over.
Yeah,
it's over. Listen, I guarantee you, if you put the Dallas Cowboys on a lie detector test, they would admit to you that they've already made their vacation plan. They already know where they're going.
I hope they're
They already know where they're going at
the
end of the start of the new year. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead. Motivate them.
Please, keep talking.
You've been trying to motivate them for weeks. Skip. How's that worked out for you?
I haven't said a word. I wouldn't even pick the last 2 games. I refused to even pick the score of the last 2 games. I was playing not to lose. I'm going to play to win this time. I'm going to set the tone. I'm challenging my team to look inside themselves and say, are we men or mice? Because they've been mice for a long time.
Like that one.
Mice. Right.
The Dallas Mice.
Well, you go ahead and disrespect them. All you're doing is showing that you finally decided to join the party. All you're doing is finally deciding to show up at the party. Yeah. We all know they stink. We all know they're not going anywhere. We know that you're the ringleader for the worst fan base in all of America, the most unrealistic Fantasy Island fans that ever existed. Honestly, sitting up in here, sitting there trying to make a case for a 4-9 team. Let me show you how pathetic you are. You shouldn't even want them to make the postseason. You shouldn't even want them to make the postseason. If the Dallas Cowboys, if they could get in at 5-11, you'd actually be happy about that. You'd actually be happy about that.
I would take it right now. I would.
You would. Oh, please stop wasting
Because
my
it would
time.
make you wrong.
They're not going anywhere. The Jets will find a way to win. The only way the Jets will lose this game is if they decide not to show up because they're taking the Dallas Cowboys for granted for being the pathetic bunch that they are. That's the only reason.
Okay.
Outside of that, nobody's going to waste any time.
Take them lightly.
You understand? Y'all still
Ryan
headlines.
Fitzpatrick.
You're still publicity.
Yeah.
You find a way to be relevant for people to talk about y'all. Y'all are so pathetic. You don't even care what people are saying. You got a head coach that's a puppet. You got a quarterback who doesn't need to be a quarterback. You got a running back who's in Philadelpia that should still be in Dallas.
No, we
you
don't
got
need him.
injured
We don't
players.
need him.
You got to hope and
He's a
pray
shell of
some of the
himself,
others
too.
stay off. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I just
Come on
said
now.
it. No.
All right. I'm going to leave it alone. I was going to say stay off the weed, but I'm not going to even mess with them brothers. They've had a rough enough year. I'm going to just leave it alone, okay?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have a good Thanksgiving. They're not going to have a good Christmas. I mean, I don't know if even they deserve this. I mean, and Lord knows what their New Year's is going to be like. I mean, they've had an atrocious year
delicious.
all
We are going
the
to
way
have a little
around.
meal on
We
Monday.
are?
Yeah, we're going to have a little celebration. My Dallas Cowboys are one game out of first on Monday morning.
Wow.
Somebody's going to be sweating on this show,
I'm gonna bring
and it ain't
party
going to be
hats.
me.
I will say this. I do have something that they could do, Skip Bayless. I would personally like to extend an invite to the Dallas Cowboys to feel free to come in and sit here for me. So you two, y'all all can mingle with one another and lament the pathetic state of affairs. I have no problem giving my seat up to Des Bryant or any member of the Cowboys that you so desire to sit across from you, because it's the only thing that's going to make them relevant, since we are a hit show, since we got record ratings
that
and
would
all
be
of
a
this
good
other
idea.
stuff.
We elevate
this is
the
a reason
IQ
for
on
them
the
to be
show.
relevant.
Yeah.
This is a reason for them to be relevant. Maybe if they came and sat on First Take, they would actually serve a purpose. But when it comes to actually playing football, we all know they don't.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why. Once again,
here's my last question to you.
Stop it.
You're guaranteeing a win by. Wait a second. You got to explain this to me. You're guaranteeing a win by Ryan Fitzpatrick. Do you realize on throws of 20 plus down the field, he's completing 18.6% of his passes, second only in bad to Mariota, who's 17% of those throws? Are you kidding me? And you're booking it against my defense that he's going to have a big day? By the way, I haven't gotten your score, so what is it, like 45-7? Is that what you're doing? Ryan Fitzpatrick, 45, Cowboys 7.
I told you, I have no intention of watching the game. I'm not interested. If you want me to throw out a score, I'll do it for you. It don't matter. I don't care if it's 3-2.
The score. That's
it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. They're a waste of time. They're a waste of time. John Legend said it best. Please.
No, Stephen
let it go.
Did you hear the remix?
Over.
It's Let It Fly. Skip has a remix now. John Legend needs to redo it. Let it fly.
Give me a score. Come on, do it. I want to put your money where your mouth is. Put it in the 40s. Go ahead.
It doesn't
yes,
matter.
It does. You're afraid to pick a score because you know it's going to be closer than your score.
Skip 27, 20 something. Who cares? I don't know. I don't
don't
care. It's so irrelevant. They're so irrelevant.
They're
Skip,
mice.
I don't care if it's 3-2.
No, well, they have been mice.
They're
going to turn back into men.
They will find a way to lose because that's who they are.
Yeah.
That's who they are.
Cowboys, did you hear that? Stephen A. Smith called you mice. That's what he said you were. Mice. Not men, mice.
Ryan Fitzpatrick can clinch his first winning season with a win, everyone.
But it's not like it's not applicable.
See, I got you to say it.
I mean, what are you talking about?
There we go.
Yeah, when the cat's away, the mice will play.
Yeah, that's right.
Tony Romo's the cat.
I don't want to foul him, and I've learned from history of watching a lot of games. Westbrook tends to get those calls late in games, and he kind of flails and puts his feet out sometimes. And I didn't even want to put myself in a position where the referee could kind of make a call. I just want to try to get a contest, not lead the floor, and hopefully he misses. If he make it, then we call a timeout. We got a chance to win a ball game, but he missed. I was able to clean glass and seal the game.
All right, so this just in, I'm very excited about Broncos and Steelers, but we need to talk about LeBron last night improving to 7-0 against KD. Obviously, another impressive performance there. Stephen A., what was your reaction, your takeaway from that performance last night?
Well, other than LeBron James once again reminded us all of his level of greatness. 33, 11, and 9. I mean, he was absolutely sensational. It was a virtuoso performance. Nobody can deny that. I found myself very disappointed in Oklahoma City Thunder. I found myself very disappointed in Kevin Durant. I know he had 25 for the game, but he was nowhere to be found when it mattered most in the fourth quarter. He couldn't score. And obviously, he's a scoring machine, the likes of which I don't believe we've ever seen. When you consider how he's 6'10", with a 7'6" wingspan, with a handle, could pull up from 30, all the things that LeBron James has said about him in the shoot-around the morning of the game. Absolutely, positively true. He's that electric, he's that spectacular, and you would expect to see him show up in those big moments, particularly going up against LeBron James, and once again, it has not happened. I also found myself disappointed in Oklahoma City Thunder, my pick to come out of the Western Conference, because LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers beat you with Kevin Love having a relatively anemic game, only 4 of 10 shooting, finished with about 10 points. I mean, for a $100 million player, I need more from Kevin Love than that, but he didn't give you but so much. Iman Shumpert didn't play. Kyrie Irving didn't play. Mo Williams didn't play. So LeBron James goes out there with the Mozgovs of the world and the J.R. Smiths of the world. Let's not forget Tristan Thompson and that rebounding demon that he was and is. I think it was like 11 of his 15 rebounds were on the offensive boards. I mean, you can't say enough about the job that he did. But Oklahoma City is too gifted. And in a game of basketball, to have two resident superstars and to have a guy who's big time like Serge Ibaka, and you can't win a game like this, I'm not going to overreact because it's the regular season, but I just expected more. And Kevin Durant obviously was sensational with some of the things that he did in the first half, and that move a la Dr. J up and under was absolutely beautiful to see. But in the end, when money time arrived, LeBron James showed up. Russell Westbrook had scored like 9 or 10 straight. He showed up, but Kevin Durant wasn't there. And so I looked at it from that perspective, and I said, you're going to need to do more if you're going to win the chip. You got to get aggressive. Time's up. It's time. He's been around long enough. They've been around long enough. Scott Brooks lost his job because they weren't able to get it done. Billy Donovan is there in an attempt to get it done. Let's do this. You're that gifted of a team. You're that gifted of a player. You can't disappear in the fourth quarter when LeBron James is on the other side of the ball.
I agree with half of your takeaway. I would agree the Thunder should have won this game. Obviously, no Kyrie, as you say, no Shumpert, no Mo Williams. And I know Oklahoma City was playing back-to-back on the road. It's difficult. Maybe you run out of gas in the fourth quarter. But the Thunder were up 4 going to the fourth quarter and immediately gave up a 17-2 run. They're just better than that. It's still Westbrook and Durant and, Ibaka and all the other pieces you talked about. You did pick them to win the West. And they may well still come together and win the West because they certainly have enough firepower to win it. But where I didn't agree with your take was that you called this a virtuoso performance by LeBron. And it was until the final 5 minutes of the game when LeBron did just about everything within his power to hand the game back to Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And I don't know if we have the video of LeBron at the very end of the game walking off the floor because he held his head as he walked toward the bench like, what was I doing? What happened to me? We got it at the end of there. He is walking away. Like what was I thinking? What got into me? Because that was as bad as I've ever seen LeBron try to close a game as far as getting sloppy. Because Stephen A, in the last 453, he had, by my count, 4 turnovers. The last one they gave to Tristan Thompson when Tristan came down with the rebound and tried to keep from getting fouled by handing the ball to LeBron. And I thought it was a clean handoff, and LeBron was a little surprised and just fumbled the ball out of bounds. I thought that was his turnover. So that would have been 4 turnovers, and he went 1 for 5 over that period from the field. The one was just a layup, so he missed his jump shots, missed a 3. And it was so messy that all of a sudden it comes down to Russell Westbrook with a 3 to tie, and he left it short. And I thought LeBron played great defense on both Kevin and Russell down the stretch as he sort of mixed and matched on both of them. So I give him that. But to your point about Kevin Durant, he goes 1 for 5 in the fourth quarter, And their offense has no flow. This is why I always tell you I can't buy completely into them. I don't see ball movement. I don't see rhythm. I don't see pecking order. They just look at each other like, your turn, my turn. That nobody seems to know. Can we shoot? The other guy's like, or is it okay if we try a shot in the fourth quarter, or are you guys just going to do it? And Billy Donovan is yet, it's too early to certainly judge his job, but he hasn't exactly seized the reins so far, and I just don't know if it's capable for him to seize the reins of a team with these two superstars in control, mostly on the floor. So I just didn't like what I saw from Oklahoma City down the stretch, nor did I love what I saw from LeBron in the last 453, but they survived, they won, and he beat Durant again because Durant has Westbrook. That's my point.
Well, I think that, first of all, let's give Billy Donovan a chance. Billy Donovan is a two-time national champion on the collegiate level, and he's 17-9. It's not like he's 9-17. He's 17-9. They recently won 6 straight. You're getting yourself together and learning on this level.
That's fair.
Not to mention, I think he's got 2 fabulous assistant coaches in both Mo Cheeks and Monty Williams, who should be head coaches. So let's make sure we remember that. That's number 1. Number 2, again, when we look at the game of basketball, if you told anybody that you could have 2 superstars on your team and your third wheel is somebody the likes of a Serge Ibaka, most guys would take that. Most guys would understand that that's a big-time situation to be in. You're Kevin Durant. You shoot 52, nearly 53% from the field, better than 43% from three-point range, almost 90% from the free throw line. You can't go 1 for 5 in the fourth quarter.
Yep,
you just can't do it. I mean, when you're that lethal, you can't do it and expect y'all to win. So this is what it is. And then you add that extra motivation. Once again, when we talk about a Russell Westbrook, to a lesser degree, a Carmelo Anthony, you might lose, but Carmelo Anthony going to go at you. Carmelo Anthony is going to be like, give me the ball. Now, he might have a bad game, and he might not shoot effectively, but it's going up. I can promise you that. It's the fourth quarter, and it's against a dude that's beating you 15 or 19 times, including, 12 or 15 times in the regular season. You're going up against Melo, and those headlines are there. Melo going to come at you. That's just it. Chris Paul, when Chris Paul was going up against Steph, and everybody was going up and talking about Steph. Yes, Steph dropped 30-plus, but Chris Paul had 30-plus.
Yeah,
it's like he ain't going anywhere.
I agree.
So
you're right.
You see stuff like that. And I'm saying, coming into last night's game, everyone was talking about Kevin Durant against LeBron and Kevin Durant's lack of success against LeBron. The fourth quarter, he should have been looking for it. And that's not what happened. So, again, doesn't take away from the fact that he's a superstar. They're still my pick to come out of the West. I'm not jumping ship as of yet, but I need Kevin Durant to mirror Russell Westbrook in terms of attitude, because it's going to take that in order for them to come out of the West and in order for him to beat LeBron. Skip, I'm not saying this because I don't know this. Again, I haven't spoken to Kevin Durant or his friends or family or anybody else, but there are people in the NBA that when they think about Kevin Durant going elsewhere, one of the reasons that you don't hear much about the Eastern Conference is because of LeBron being there. I mean, this is the kind of stuff people say. Now, whether it's true or not, who knows? But some of his contemporaries have uttered this stuff. Now, this is one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. And a guy that took this team to the finals. And they're looking at it like, yo, LeBron's in the East. He don't want to go there. That's what they saying.
I know.
Now he's saying that.
But what's more obvious to me is, wouldn't you want to take your chances with LeBron as opposed to your chances with San Antonio and Golden State and Houston and on and on and on?
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree, and I don't believe that, because I don't believe Kevin Durant's scared of anybody with the window. He could drop 40 in his sleep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you know everybody's talking, chirping about you and LeBron, and you go 1 and 5 in the fourth quarter, with those skills, how the hell that happen?
Yeah, I agree. Can I make one last point just to be fair? Just to be fair to LeBron, as he unraveled down the stretch, remember with 3:07 left, he did accidentally crash into Jason Day's wife Ellie in courtside seats.
Yeah.
And it might have I'm going to give him this break here because maybe he was a little distracted by it. Maybe it shook him up a little bit because play had to stop.
She went away in a stretcher.
Yeah.
Y'all remember, no one knew she was okay until after the game was over and they were in the locker room and they got word from the hospital that she was fine. Up until that moment, nobody knew that, and you obviously don't wish that on anybody. And I mean, LeBron's 6'8", 250, man. I mean, come on now.
He might be more than 250. Yeah,
that was scary. That was scary.
And I know there's questions after the game about should they somehow protect the fans better courtside. We don't see this that often, and I don't think I've ever seen one worse than that. Have you? That was just one of those wrong place, wrong time things.
Yeah. Well, it was like your imagination because when he fell back, you see people tumble over.
Yeah.
What was scary about that is that it looked like not only did he fall into her, but that he landed on her when his body fell back.
Yeah.
So because of it, that's what made it scary. You just imagined him crushing her. Yeah. And that's what made it scary.
And those seats are a couple of feet below the floor level, so he's coming down on top.
On her.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank goodness she's okay, though, and I think he either tweeted out or put an apology on Instagram as well. And they obviously attend a lot of Cleveland sporting events.
Yep.
The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Iowa completed its first ever 12-win season and was one win away from the playoff. Stanford won the Pac-12 championship and was in the playoff conversation until the final week. It's the first ever meeting between the two. Number 5 Iowa, number 6 Stanford. The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 5 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
Meanwhile, he may not start in the playoffs, but Brock Osweiler can lead the Broncos to the playoffs with the win in the Steel City. Big Ben and the Steelers have scored 30 points in 5 straight games, a first in Pittsburgh history. Since starting the season 7-0, the Broncos are now 3-3. Stephen A., Broncos, Steelers, who you got?
Well, I'm going to go with the Steelers. I mean, obviously. I mean, this is a must-win situation. Obviously, the Denver Broncos are trying to get the highest seed imaginable, and we're going to see what Brock Osweiler is made of, at least to some degree, because the pressure is mounting. Peyton Manning is on the verge of being healthy enough to come back, and at that point, John Elway and Gary Kubiak are going to have to make a decision. We don't know what direction that they're going to go in. A lot of it is going to be contingent upon Brock Osweiler's production, and not only just based on his production, but also because the defense is so elite. Number 1 in points allowed, yards allowed against the pass, the things that they're doing defensively, the kind of noise that they're making. There's no question that when you look at Brock Osweiler, he's going to have to step up and show you what he's made of. I don't think this is the game where it's going to get done because he's as elite as Denver's defense is this year. I think the Steelers' offense is so high-powered, I don't see them being shut down. Certainly, Denver can make plays. Certainly, they're not going to steamroll over Denver the way that they've done others. But in the end, Brock Osweiler is going to have to put up points in order for Denver to win. And even against the Steelers' putrid pass defense, I don't think that he's going to be able to do it. I think with Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Wheaton, Heath Miller, D'Angelo Williams running in the backfield, Ben Roethlisberger having worked off that rust, I think that helps them. I think when you look at the Steelers right now and just think about it, they've gone against top 5 defenses in the NFL this year on several occasions. Seattle, they were number 2 at the time, Arizona, New England, Kansas City, and of course Cincinnati twice. They split with Cincinnati. They beat Arizona. They lost to Seattle. They lost to New England. They lost to Kansas City. But only Kansas City neutralized them for putting up points, and Big Ben Roethlisberger wasn't quarterbacking that game. That was Landry Jones doing so. So now that we got Big Ben Roethlisberger back in the mix, I think it's one of those situations where even against Denver, they're going to be able to put up points, and Denver's going to have to score points to win games, which means you're asking me to say that Brock Osweiler is going to be able to do it, and I just don't believe that he will. I see the Sixers winning this game. I think Denver will be able to score some points, but I see the Steelers winning this game along the lines of 31-23.
Aha. I was waiting for your score because I wanted to see how high you were going to go for Ben's offense versus this defense, and you're going all the way to 31. Yes. I'm not sure they can get to 30. I have so much respect for this defense. And by the way, this is my favorite stat of the day. Denver's defense leads the NFL in sacks, in defensive touchdowns allowed, only 5, and in forced fumbles with 21. No team in the last 20 seasons has led in all 3 categories. That's how good this defense is. It is serious. It is hard-nosed. It is hard to score against this defense, and it causes problems. It disrupts. It can, as you know, it can really rush the passer. So I'm fascinated. This is a fascinating game on a great day of another great slate of NFL games. But I'm interested to see this game because, to me, obviously, Pittsburgh's offense is the most explosive and the most entertaining to watch. If I had to pay my money to watch an offense, it would be this offense. I'm not sure I'd pay my money to watch the whole game because I don't want to watch Brock Osweiler against the Pittsburgh defense. I'm only interested, I'm sure I'm going to have like 4 games going at once, but I'm only interested in when Ben's on the field against this defense. I don't think he can get to 30. I gave him 23, and sometimes I think that's too high. But I've got it 23-10. And for the record, this is the first week I haven't heard the Broncos referred to as the Broncos. I haven't heard Brock on this week because it's Brock off so far because Denver has not scored a touchdown in its last 23 possessions. Hasn't scored a touchdown with Brock on at quarterback. Again, no offense to him. It's his first time around. He hadn't done this before. But I thought there was enormous, hysterical overreaction to his first couple of games. He's now been sacked 17 times in the last 5 games, the most over that span in the NFL. And on throws of 15-plus yards, he's completing a grand total of 27%, which is the worst in the NFL. So it's dinks, it's dunks, and it's going nowhere fast. Obviously, against the Raiders, they moved the ball like crazy. What do you have, 22 completions the first half? But they were dinks and they were dunks. And that's not going to work against a Pittsburgh defense that is really starting to fly around. I know you've been hard on their secondary, but by the week, it gets a little better. And Mike Tomlin, whose forte is coaching defense and motivating, I wish Mike Tomlin coached my Cowboys. Maybe I'd really have a shot, right? But he's everything.
You'd have won about 3 of those 7 games.
That's true.
With Mike Tomlin
just on
coaching.
Pure pregame motivation, I would have won 3 of those games. I'm with you. But he's finally got his defense just playing like a pack of wild dogs. You know, they come out and they hit people and they fly around the field to the point that they're starting to become a force, even though the back end of it is suspect. I agree with you on that. But I look at Ben's offense. They have 3 500-yard-plus games. No one else has more than 1 in the NFL. So what a great matchup. You know, it's going to be bombs away, but are they going to find their marks? No, I don't think very often because this defense doesn't give up many big plays. So I think it's going to stay fairly close just because I don't think they'll be able to sort of break the dam. It won't break away against this defense. So I got it 23-10, and I may be on the high side on giving Brock Osweiler 10 points in this game.
Got it. I would tell you this. I mean, and it's just to regurgitate some of the things that you said. I'm looking at the Steelers' numbers right here. Denver, I'm sorry, their numbers, allowing just 272.5 yards, total yards per game. Number 1 in yards per play allowed, points per game allowed, net passing yards per game allowed. Number 1 in sacks with 44 and 290 yards lost with Von Miller having 10 sacks. DeMarcus Ware 6.5. There is no doubt that this defense is elite. But when I picked the Steelers to put up 31, it's because I believe the Steelers' defense, as putrid as they can be at times, I think they're good for 10 points against Brock Osweiler.
Maybe. Well,
I think that
could be.
Whether it's a pick six or it's a couple of interceptions, that put them in really good field position where they can make some noise, I think those things are going to help the Steelers. I'm not saying that the offense is going to score 31 on Denver's defense. I'm saying that the Steelers' defense will generate some points. I think they'll generate 10 to 14 points because they will exploit and expose Brock Osweiler. That's why I think they're going to win this game, and that's why I picked them to score such a high number.
Okay.
I know better than thinking that anybody's going to just score 31 on Denver's defense.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. And if you're right about the final score, what'd you say, 31 to what was your
31 to 23.
23.
23, I don't know about that. Whatever. If it is fairly decisive, then it's going to be get well soon, Peyton. That's all I got to say. Starting next week. Here we go.
And FPI gives the Steelers an 83% chance to still make the playoffs. Obviously, a lot has to happen for that to happen, but they still have a good shot. Speaking of Philly, the 11-2 Cardinals can clinch the NFC West this weekend. They face the Eagles, who are part of a three-way tie in the NFC East. Carson Palmer is having an MVP season. He leads all QBs in QBR. The Redskins play the Bills, and of course the Panthers take on the Giants. Oh, Skip.
Oh, yes, Molly.
On Monday,
Yes.
what will the NFC East look like?
Molly and Mr. Smith, allow me to tell you exactly what it will look like
Please
on
do.
Monday morning when we reconvene at 10 a.m. on ESPN2. Number one, the Eagles will lose at home to Arizona, 31-20. As Molly just pointed out, Carson Palmer is running away with the NFL QBR race, 6 whole points ahead of Ben Roethlisberger. And when he's throwing to Larry Fitzgerald and Michael Floyd and John Brown, that's too much weaponry for that Eagles secondary, even in Philadelphia. The Redskins also will lose at home in a shootout to Buffalo, 31-30. Tyrod Taylor leads the National Football League in touchdown passes of 20-plus yards with 10. The Redskins have given up 10 touchdown passes of 20-plus yards. So I say Tyrod to Sammy Watkins with a little LaShawn mixed in will be enough to win a shootout at Washington. As I said earlier, your Giants, and you agreed with me, will lose at home to Carolina 34-24. And as I said again, it is not time to let it go for my Cowboys. It is time to let it fly. They will play their best game of the year on Saturday night. They will win at Jerry World 20-17. And if my math serves me, that means that we'll have a three-way tie again atop the NFC East at 6-8. That will also mean that my Dallas Cowboys will be one game back at 5-9. One game back on Monday morning, and the least will just be getting started. Thank you very much. Your thoughts?
The Dallas Cowboys obviously will lose.
Oh, obviously.
Yes.
So
Okay.
why we're even talking about them once again is a waste of time. John Legend, what we got to do? Bring him back here to sing another song to
Yeah.
you for you to get the
That would
message.
be
I mean,
nice. I would
it's just a
appreciate
waste
that.
of the.
Yeah, bring it
I
live,
would-
too, Chrissy.
we would be honored. But he's not going to waste his time. He understands it's a waste of time talking to you about this stuff. You just don't get it. You just don't get it. The Redskins will beat the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles will lose to the Cardinals. Okay? They will lose to the Cardinals, and the Giants will lose to the Panthers. So as a result, obviously the Redskins will be atop the division, but everybody else will be at least 2 games ahead of the Cowboys because the Cowboys are going to lose. And that's really what this is about. See, we sit here because Skip Bayless wants the world to think that he really wants to talk about the NFC East.
No,
what he wants to do
I
is make
don't. I
a
wanna
case
talk
for the
about these
Cowboys to
games.
be relevant. They are not relevant. They will not
Okay.
win. They will lose to the Jets. I promise you that. They will lose
Okay, let's
to the
dismiss
Jets.
the Cowboys from this discussion. I want you
Giants
to
are gonna
explain
lose
to
to the
me how the
Panthers.
Redskins are going to beat the Bills even in Washington.
You know, you know what, Skip Bayless? I've lost faith in Rex Ryan and the Buffalo Bills. I got to admit that because, I mean, listen, Tyrod Taylor has had a sensational season. We looked at LaShawn McCoy and some of the distraction that transpired in Philadelphia. The fact that they lost that game, they've lost their zest. They know that they cost themselves the season. Rex Ryan admitted it after the game. The players acknowledged it after the game. You even have players talking about, we really took for granted that it was going to take us a little while to acclimate ourselves to new coaching staff, new system, et cetera, et cetera. I think all of those things hurt the Buffalo Bills, and I think the Redskins, although they are allergic to prosperity, the fact that they went on the road, having lost 9 straight road games, and beat Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears last week, told me a little something. So now I'm looking at them being at RFK Stadium, being in FedEx Field, being in the nation's capital. I think this is a game they should win on their home turf. I think obviously the division lead is on their line. I anticipate and expect them to be ready, especially after the egg they laid against the Dallas Cowboys a couple of weeks back. It's just a product of me losing faith in the Buffalo Bills because they shouldn't have found themselves in this situation, and they are here. That's where I'm at when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, Skip Bayless. That's why I'm picking the Redskins to win this game. I think the Redskins have more to lose than the Bills, and I think because of that, they'll show up.
You realize the whole year for the Redskins, they haven't won 2 in a row all year, and I think it's over their last, 9 games that they've gone win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And
yeah,
they
you're
just
right.
won
You're right.
In a shocker at Chicago thanks to Robbie Gould. What are you doing to me?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they won, so it's time for them to go home to the scene of their latest crime, losing to my Cowboys on Monday night, and I think it's time for them to lose again, even though Kirk Cousins has been pretty great at home. I will give him that.
See, I don't know that. I think you would be right had they beat the Cowboys and then beat the Chicago Bears. Then I think so. But the fact that they lost to the Cowboys and they lost their last game at FedEx Field, I think that's going to help them be, aware, present, focused on the task at hand with the Buffalo Bills. Now, if you want to make a case for the Buffalo Bills outside of their talent, it's the fact that they have absolutely nothing to lose because their season is now a wash because they blew their opportunities. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, you got me there. But I'm just of the mindset, I just believe that Kirk Cousins and the Redskins, this is the kind of game they could win. And I could see them pulling this out. Obviously, I don't see the same with Philadelphia and the Giants, and certainly not the Cowboys. I think the Redskins are the only team within the NFC East who will win this week.
Okay, and I must admit to you on national TV, the team that scares me the most as a Cowboy supporter is the Eagles. Even though I thought Buffalo was in position to win that game last week, and who was it? Marcus Thigpen muffed that punt, and that changed that whole game. And it was close to the end. You could be right. Maybe they lost heart after that game, except that I don't think Tyrod Taylor will lose heart for this game. I think he competes, and I think he will compete in this game in just on pure pride. I thought Buffalo played pretty well. They still commit way too many penalties. That's Rex's. I'm dumping that on Rex's doorstep. They just look undisciplined to me. But when you least expect
too many penalties.
Yeah, I know, but they have good games in them, and I think we're going to get a good game. Maybe I'm wishful thinking there, but I think this is their chance, their time to bounce back with a respectable win here, and you'll say, well, okay, they're hanging in there, even though it's almost over in the wild card.
I don't blame you about the Eagles, but I just think the Cardinals are too good. I mean, being 11-2, wanting to position themselves, make sure, they're going to have the number 2 seed in the NFC conference. I just look at Carson Palmer, the year that he's having, the Larry Fitzgeralds of the world, the Michael Floyds of the world, the John Browns of the world. The way they've been playing, I'm just going to roll with them. I just think they're a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think their defense is going to get to Sam Bradford and those boys. The Philadelphia's defense can make a little noise. They have the potential to make some plays. We all know that. But offensively, I don't think they're reliable enough to think that they're going to beat an Arizona Cardinals team, unless the Arizona Cardinals are the team that showed up against Pittsburgh weeks ago. Unless it's that team, I don't see them losing this game.
So, to sum up the accusation you made against me, we just went this whole topic and we talked mostly about the Redskins, the Bills, and the Eagles in Arizona. Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of you.
I don't think
that means I'm proud of you.
I barely even mentioned the team that is going to win on Saturday night at Jerry World on NFL Network.
I'm proud of you. I'm so touched. I'm so touched. And by the way, you're looking out for yourself. Because, again, you have to understand, Skip, I'm not just thinking about you. I'm thinking about the wonderful, lovely Ernestine. I'm thinking about Molly. I'm thinking about our staff on First Take. I'm thinking about everybody. Because Lord knows how you're going to be if you really get your hopes up and then the Dallas Cowboys let you down again. It's just the cruelty that you subject people to. I'm looking out for everybody. I'm thinking about us. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about our loved ones. That's what I'm thinking about. Somebody's got to do it, Skip, because you're not going to do it because you're going to be too despondent. So I got to look out for everybody because you're going to be too despondent to act right. So I don't want you to get your hopes up. That's why I want you to focus on the other teams and not your loser Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I have absolutely no doubt my Cowboys are going to beat the Jets on Saturday night. I have no fear, no doubt, no second thoughts about it.
I see those eyebrows raising. Those eyebrows are raising with a slight little smirk because you know better.
No,
you just want to give them a reason to believe. Yeah, you do.
No,
yeah, you do. It's okay, though.
Let
it's
it
okay.
fly.
It's okay.
It's okay.
No one has anything to fear, especially Ernestine, who won't be watching anyway.
Okay.
She'll just leave me alone.
Smart woman.
Yeah.
Until it's over, and then she'll decide whether she wants to talk to you. In what could be the last game played in St. Louis, the Rams beat the Bucs last night on Thursday Night Football. However, Jeff Fisher's squad is now only 6-8 this season and only 26-35-1 during his tenure as Rams head coach. Our Adam Schefter reported yesterday that the Rams have zero plans to fire Jeff Fisher after the season and would like him to return for 2016. Fisher is under contract through next season. Skip, how much is Fisher to blame for the Rams record?
Stephen A, to me, far more than he's getting blamed, apparently, at this point in a 6-8 season on a team that I think has far more talent than its 6-8 record. May I take a quick aside, a quick right turn to say that I did watch this game, trying to watch the basketball and the football game at the same time. Yep. Jameis Winston showed me heart and guts last night. He was under fire the whole game, mostly from Aaron Donald. He took a lot of physical abuse, some emotional abuse, and he just kept bouncing up and firing another pass. They wound up with over 500 yards offense, and they crept back into the game late. I just liked the way he competed last night, so way to go, Jameis. Now back to Jeff Fisher. You know, I'm not the biggest Jeff Fisher fan and haven't been for all the way back to his Vince Young days. And I will give Jeff this. Obviously, they've suffered their share of injuries. Robert Quinn, Chris Long, Janoris Jenkins, Ogletree. And obviously, he made a quarterback change and went with a Nick Foles, who's been mostly a disaster. Had a couple of good games, and they had a couple of flashes where you said, wow, that home opener, they beat Seattle, and then they went to Arizona and won. Impressive. That's the team that I picked to be a wild card team, and obviously they're not going to be a wild card team. I look at the good in this team. I look at how it performed last night. I look at Tavon Austin and the emergence, why I picked him to be a wild card team, obviously of a Todd Gurley, who's just a flat-out stud. Didn't have a huge game last night, but had a couple of stud runs. And I say, wow, with Trey Mason and Jared Cook, they've added Kenny Britt, there's just so much firepower there. It's such an impressive roster that they just should be better than 6-8. They had a 5-game losing streak. They got blown out at home by Jake Cutler and company. That's just not right. Something's very wrong here, and to me, somebody should take a harder look at a Jeff Fisher who's been a media favorite for a long time. I know a lot of the national writers and analysts really like him, and that's fine with me. But in the end, if you look hard and objectively at what happened this year, even with Nick Foles, even having to go to Case Keenum, this team is better than 6-8 in my humble estimation.
Well, Skip Bayless, I get what you're saying about the likability factor, and I truly respect the fact that it's fine with you. It's not fine with me, in all seriousness, and I hate to make people uncomfortable, but somebody has to do it. Last week, I brought up the fact that if you look at Jason Garrett's record in Dallas and the years of mediocrity, he was the walking embodiment of why black folks had a problem with the system. Because you see a situation where it is clear that you're the head coach because Jerry Jones loves you. There's no other reason for you to be the head coach. But compared to Jeff Fisher, one would argue Jason Garrett could be mistaken for Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin or somebody. I mean, because Jeff Fisher's record is just absolutely pathetic. The next time this man has a 500 season, it will only be the 7th time he's done that in 21 seasons as a head coach. This man is en route to his 4th consecutive losing season. This man has been to the postseason, Lord knows how many times. It hasn't been that many. Hasn't been to the postseason since a 13-3 year when he was coaching Tennessee back in 2008. Okay, continues to lose, continues to be below 500. Yet and still, this man is being paid $7 million a year, just $500,000 less than a 4-time Super Bowl champion in Bill Belichick, and according to reports, over $2.1 million than the league average for coaches. And then you look at some of these guys and some of these teams that have lost their jobs. How many coaches that have been fired all over the place in Buffalo and Cleveland, and I mean the list goes on and on. I'm just looking at some of these numbers here and I'm like, are you kidding me? 4 teams, Chicago, Buffalo, Cleveland, and Tennessee, have dismissed 2 coaches, not 1, 2, in Fisher's tenure in St. Louis. This is what they're saying here. Ken Wisenhunt got fired twice. First by the Cardinals and now by the Titans. But somehow, some way, this man, Jeff Fisher, gets a job. All I can say to you is that I guess this is what America's about. When you sit there and you look at other candidates, and it doesn't have to just be minorities. It's white candidates out there, coordinators on both the offensive and defensive side, craving for an opportunity and can't get one because of the good old boy network or the fact that they haven't ingratiated themselves with the right people or whatever. Don't get me started with black folks looking for opportunities, but I can tell you this. I know of no black person that has this kind of latitude and this kind of leeway, that you can be so inept, so inefficient, so unproductive as it pertains to wins and losses, and still have this level of job security. Not only is he being paid like one of the elite coaches, you've got an owner that's talking about he ain't going nowhere. He's coming back next year. And all because they may be relocating from St. Louis to California, and Jeff Fisher has experience in relocation. That's the argument that you're giving, folks. It is unreal how this stuff happens. It is unreal how flagrantly unfair this is, because it's not consistent with what we're told professional sports is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about results. And certainly you don't want to pull the trigger too quickly. But no one would argue that Jeff Fisher has had plenty of time. He's accumulated some talent. There's no doubt about it. He's made the defense arguably one of the elite ones. The offense has been porous. But in the end, the results are on his watch and that of Les Snead. More so Jeff Fisher to me than Les Snead. And the fact that he doesn't get held accountable for it, I don't know him personally. He seems to be a nice man. I am not attacking him on a personal level in any way. I am simply looking at his record and saying to you, most folks wouldn't get over like this.
Yeah.
And don't get me started with black folks. They wouldn't get over with it at all. But somehow, some way, Jeff Fisher not only gets to keep his job, but get paid lovely. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, an owner who's willing to declare he ain't going nowhere. We're going to stick with him. It's good to be Jeff Fisher. He should give classes on political correctness or whatever it is that he does to keep himself in these advantageous positions, because it is a miracle that he has gotten away with it.
He should give a class on how to ingratiate oneself with the media, because he's the master of that. He's also a powerful member of the competition committee. Mm-hmm. Don't undersell that on his resume. And
I do understand that, and I'm not saying he doesn't belong there. The man knows football.
Sure he does.
I have no problem with him being on a competition committee. I have no problem with folks leaning on him to gain his counsel about different issues, because he's been around a long time. But in the interest of fairness, if you're going to produce those kind of results and he gets to have that level of security, what chances do an abundance of folks out there, black, white, and beyond, have of ultimately getting an opportunity when you're allowed that kind of security with those paltry results?
I agree with every word you just uttered. I am 1,000% with you on your view of this. I don't get it either, and it's an injustice. It's an injustice to black coaches everywhere. Frankly, it makes me sick. And I'm no Jason Garrett guy. I know he did have the 12-4 last year and won a playoff game, so at least he's got that going for him. But in the main, he's a Stepford coach. He's a puppet coach. He's like a son to Jerry, and I don't have a lot of respect for him. But he's going to keep his job, Jason Garrett.
He deserves to keep his job more than Jeff Fisher does.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep. And it appears Jeff Fisher will too. And apparently, if this team potentially goes to L.A., we'll travel with them. And
he played at USC. I guess you could sell that.
Yep, that
right?
connection. Moving on, Charles Barkley
By
says.
the way,
yeah.
Keep in mind, Skip, that just about a year ago or so, we were lamenting if Mike Tomlin had missed the playoffs, how he could be in trouble.
Sure.
Do you realize the nerve folks have for bringing up that subject with the security that Jeff Fisher has been allowed to have?
Fair enough.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
The biggest New Year's Eve party of all time. And you're invited. The Orange Bowl, Clemson, Oklahoma. At the 5, touchdown, Alabama. The Cotton Bowl, Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff. Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
Meanwhile, the 25-1 Warriors are on pace to win 78 games this season, which, of course, would easily surpass the 95-96 Bulls record of 72 wins. Well, Charles Barkley was on ESPN Radio's Waddle and Sylvie show yesterday and was asked if the Golden State team could beat the record-setting Bulls. Take a listen.
Oh, man, you're kidding me, right? That Bulls team will kill this little team.
Right.
Come on, man. Who's going to guard Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan? What about Dennis Rodman? Come on, man.
I just
Listen,
think
I know we live in the moment. First of all, let me tell you something. These guys ain't won a championship yet. I still like the Spurs, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I do. I still like the Spurs to win a championship this year. I'm telling you, don't just because these guys are beating up on inferior competition, don't overreact now.
Music to this man's ear. Stephen A., do you agree with Barkley?
Yeah, but not in the sense that he's doing it because he's right. But it's not like I don't think Golden State will win a game or something. I think when you shoot that well, you always have a puncher's chance. I would pick the Bulls, however, to win that series in 5 games. And Skip, it's nothing to even belabor. It's this simple. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen would guard Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Dennis Rodman, whether it's Draymond Green or somebody else, it doesn't matter. Those three fixtures on the defensive side of the ball closes the deal. There's nothing to discuss. There's no way that Steph Curry would be shooting 52% from the field and 45% from three-point range against Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen. There's no way as great and as quick of a release as Klay Thompson has. There's no way that would be going on against those guys. Now, the rules of today's game could impact Golden State in a positive way where they could make a series out of it if guys had to play by today's rule. No hand checking, no elbows to the back, no hard fouls or whatever the case may be. Even though Jordan and Pippen didn't really play like that, they could lock you down. And Scottie Pippen's length could disrupt everything that you want to do as an offense, which is why ultimately the Bulls would prevail. But make no mistake, it's not even about the offense. Barkley talked about stopping them. Well, that's true. But it's really about the fact that Pippen and Jordan could defend anyone. Anyone. And that is the difference. I'm not saying Steph Curry and Klay wouldn't get theirs, but they wouldn't be as prolific as they are against today's competition. It would not happen. The Bulls would probably win in 5. In all likelihood. Possibility of 6, but more than likely they'd win in 5 games.
I agree with you and then some. For once, I underline for once, I actually agree with something Charles Barkley said. Though it does give me pause when he's picking my Spurs to win this year's championship, just scares me a little bit. But do appreciate that, Charles. Now back to the premise. I believe in a 7-game series, Michael's team would sweep this team. You could be right. They could win a game, but it would take crazy hot 3-point shooting from the Splash Brothers to to win a game at Oracle against Michael's 95-96
Which
Bulls.
they're fully capable of doing.
They're capable, but I don't think it would happen because I think Michael Jordan would say no. He would take it as such a challenge to win 4 straight games. I believe he and his crew could win 4 straight. I covered the 97-98 Bulls, and game after game, night after night, I watched the threesome of Jordan, Pippen, and you remember Ron Harper, Stephen A. They were all so long, so quick, so tenacious that most teams had a hard time getting the ball past half court against that threesome spread like a zone defense across the half court line. It's beyond comprehension how they could suffocate anybody with the ball in his hands. And as great as Steph is with his handle, as good as Klay Thompson is, they would struggle to get their shots off against those 3. And then Dennis Rodman, who averaged 15 rebounds a game, would give Draymond all he wanted. And I love Draymond. I love his versatility as the sort of the point center of this team. But I'm sorry that they are small compared to a team that can throw in Rodman, and then you remember, Stephen A., they can go with Luke Longley, they can go with Bill Winnington. They're all the equivalent of an Andrew Bogut. They even had John Sally, James Edwards on that team. They had lots of height and length that they could throw at a too small Golden State team that loves to play small and would have such a hard time against a team that even has. Remember, people forget Tony Kukoc. You remember Tony Kukoc?
I was getting ready to bring him up.
6 feet 10 inches tall and shot 40% from the three-point line that whole year. By the way, Michael shot 43% from 3, and Steve Kerr, the coach, shot 52% from 3 this year. So they can hurt you from deep also when they need to. But Michael averaged 30 points a game, and he would get 30 a night against this team. They just, I don't know, Klay could try to defend him, Harrison Barnes could try to defend him, and they would get punished. I'm sorry, he's Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And with all this crew that we just detailed, I just think they could win 4 in a row against the 2 small Golden State Warriors, who are highly dependent upon hot hands from long distance.
Well, here's what I would say to you. Here's what you need to think about, Skip. When you think about these Golden State Warriors and the height that they have received, all valid, all deserving, based on what we saw from them this year.
Sure.
Although it's not the same identically, compare that to when Jordan and those boys went up against the Orlando Magic in the conference finals, just a year removed from getting knocked off by the Orlando Magic in the semis when Jordan came out of retirement, still a little bit rusty, came out of retirement, 17 games left in the regular season, went against Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, Penny Hardaway, Shaq and those boys, and they lost. And Jordan wasn't himself, relatively inconsistent in the semis. They celebrated whatever. Jordan went into the locker room after. He looked at the fellas, said, y'all got 2 weeks vacation. Get back here and work out. And they were working out with one another before the finals practically, before the finals practically began. That's how focused they were on the next season. The next season comes. And it's Jordan, it's Pippen, it's Rodman, it's Tony Kukoc, it's Steve Kerr and those boys, it's Ron Harper. And they were so locked in, so zeroed in. I mean, what they did to Shaq, and I shouldn't say Shaq because he did his thing, couldn't hit free throws, but he did his thing. But Penny Hardaway and those boys, I mean, Jordan literally snatched their hearts out of their chests. We still haven't seen Nick Anderson other than seeing him as a spectator at games after that. And I love Nick Anderson.
So do
but
I.
my God, what Jordan and them should actually be arrested for what they did to Nick Anderson and those boys in that particular series. They swept them. They blew them out the building from game 1. And what I'm saying is this is comparable because there's so much noise being made about Golden State that the makeup of this 95-96 Bulls team would have taken it so personally that That's the extra something. Steph Curry, you ain't never seen anybody like him. And he would have caused Jordan and them some problems because of his handle. The problem is Pippen would have been able to stay with him. And he would have had to shoot over Pippen all series long. And you can't tell me he's going to shoot 52% from the field or 45% from three-point range against Pippen. And Jordan or Ron Harper were capable of guarding Klay Thompson. So because of that is why I say, I'm going to show Golden State its respect and not associate the word sweep with them, just like I did with Iverson against the Lakers when I said AI going to get you one. I'm thinking Steph and the Splash brother, Klay Thompson, they're going to get you one. I'm going to show them that respect. But ain't no way in hell they were going to win this series.
Skip's taking out the broom.
The Bulls would have taken them out in 5.
Yeah.
Would have taken them out in 5. I'd say 5. I'm going to show them that respect. I'd say 5.
I'm not going to show them that much respect. All I can say is today's Warriors are lucky this will never happen, that it's all hypothetical, because I think they would get embarrassed. That's just me.
Even with today's rules? Even with today's rules?
All right.
Yep.
I think today's rules give them one game, Skip. I think it gives them one game.
Boy, they'd have to bomb away from 32 feet away.
Yeah. And they can. And they can.
Meanwhile, freshman quarterback Kyler Murray became the second Texas A&M quarterback to transfer in the last week. Last week, Kyle Allen, a 14-game starter and another top-ranked quarterback prospect, elected to transfer. Uncertainty with the direction of Texas A&M's offense, the future of the offensive coaching staff, trust issues between the quarterbacks and coaching staff, and so much more led to both Murray and Allen's transferring, that sources are telling ESPN's Sam Kahn. Stephen A., what is going on here?
Well, what's going on is that I think it started from day one, opening game of the season. You were playing mixed match with the quarterbacks. You didn't stick with one thing, which is what his MO has been. Stick with the quarterback unless injury or flagrantly inconsistent or bad play damages your ability to remain a starting quarterback. Then Kevin Sumlin will go in a different direction. In this particular instance, he opened the season going back and forth from opening tap. That was definitely a problem. Not to mention the fact that if you're a quarterback, particularly a top recruit at the quarterback position, one of the top, if not the top recruit in the nation, whether it's Murray or Allen, you're thinking along the lines that this is your program, this is supposed to be your team. And if you're going back and forth and then there's no commitment that's made as to what next season is going to look like, then you're looking at your future and saying this is not the place for you to be. You got to remember, this is one of the top ranked offenses nationally for years. Nevertheless, this year they were in the middle of the pack. Over the last 2 seasons or so, they've only won like 4 SEC games each season. That's a problem. And so when you look at it from that perspective, there's going to be questions about Kevin Sumlin's job security, that of his coaching staff, who's going to elect to stay or go elsewhere. And if you're a quarterback coming out of high school with incredible potential, you don't want to be a part of that mix early on. You want to go someplace else where you know you're going to be the man and there's going to be some degree of continuity. The one thing that I would say that makes this look even worse, Skip, and I can't wait to talk to Kevin Sumlin about it. I love the man. I'm certainly going to reach out to him and hear, excuse me, what he has to say about all of this, because I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak out of turn, since I have interviewed the man on several occasions and I do know how to get a hold of him. I want to be as fair as I possibly can, but I will tell you, it's been widely recognized and reported, the paucity of African-American coaches in the sport of college football, as you and I have belabored from time to time. The fact that this is happening to his program, that is not a good look. This does not help African-American coaches. It's not good. It's bad. And I think that Kevin Sumlin, if he's not aware of it, he'd better become aware of it, because this is something that can damage it. We understand that at the very least in the sport of college football, you got coaches that are looked at differently. There's more that's expected. And it's harder for black coaches to get those opportunities. And when you get those opportunities, you've got to make the most of it. In the case of the dude Ruffin at East Carolina, even when some would argue you have made at least a decent showing, it still ain't enough. You can still end up losing your job. So this is not a good look for Kevin Sumlin, to say the least. But we need to get to the bottom as to why that is.
It's a troubling situation. And I'm glad we're talking about it, but it's disturbing to me that we need to talk about it because I'm a Kevin Sumlin fan. Obviously, when Johnny Football was there, it was great guns, and they went 11-2 that first year, then 9-4. But we're in close games with Johnny in his second year there. I heard so much about Kyler Murray coming out of high school. This is a mouthful I'm about to say. He managed to eclipse the legend of Johnny Football as a high school player in the state of Texas. I kept hearing from the great Avery Johnson, who, as we know, used to work here as our analyst at the network before he went back to Alabama. And his son, Avery's son, was the basketball star at the Dallas area high school where Kyler Murray was the football star, winning 3 straight state championships. And he kept saying, "You're not going to believe, you're not going to believe." So I was waiting and hoping that Kyler Murray would start immediately as a pure freshman for Kevin Sumlin. Did not happen. I don't know the backdrop of that. Obviously, we don't cover that team, but he went with the sophomore Kyle Allen, and it was shocking to me. And he stuck with Kyle Allen. He would give Kyler snaps here and there, and finally gave him 2 or 3 games. Then he went back to Kyle Allen with he'd had a shoulder injury, and it sounds to me like from a distance that Kyler and his father finally said, "No, this isn't working here." They clearly were so offended by the way they had been handled all the year, that Kyler had been handled. They said, "We're going to go elsewhere." And obviously, Texas badly wanted Kyler Murray, and Oklahoma badly wanted him. I don't know where he'll wind up now, but Kyle Allen transferred, which was the first shock that led to the second shock. And now, over the last, 4 years, they've lost 5 quarterbacks, 4 to transfer and 1 to baseball. It just doesn't look good from a distance, and I don't know what's going on, but it's not great for Kevin's, just his aura right now doesn't look so good.
Yeah, from a man who won Coach of the Year twice in Conference USA at Houston, and then his first year, 2012, at Texas A&M.
13 and 2.5 blocks. The Mamba still has venom in those veins. Oh, my goodness.
When the tongue comes out, vintage Mamba. Kobe's first dunk of the season was a one-hand jam over the Rockets' Clint Capella last night. Stephen A., will we see a little more of this for Kobe on his farewell season?
Hard to say because only Father Time knows. I can tell you that, again, when we saw one another, he was talking about coming up with maneuvers to work on his legs because his legs would be there 1 minute, it was gone the next. That was the cause of all his problems. Now he's saying his legs are there. Over the last 16 games, he's averaging 18 points on 48.8% shooting with 5 rebounds and 4 assists in 29 minutes a game. I doubt he could keep that up, but if his legs are fresh, he could do anything that he's doing right now. So it's been impressive. Not the Lakers, him.
He has lately started to look a little like Kobe Bryant, which is refreshing. But, Stephen A., I'm going to say this again. It's still hard for me to believe that it's now so difficult for Kobe Bryant to dunk. I mean, he's not 47, he's 37. So I just can't get it through my head that this is a rare occurrence that he actually got up to dunk with one hand. I don't know. I don't get it. It just doesn't seem like his legs should be that shot yet. But apparently they are.
Skip, 55,000 plus career minutes. I don't care about his birth certificate. I care about the mileage on his body.
Stephen A. Skip, have a great weekend. And all of you, we'll see you guys back on Monday. It's going to be fun. Catch the show weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern in the re-air at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
The College Football Playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, Michigan State.
If you're not ready for the playoff, you might not have a pulse.
Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.